S'more Murder, Book 1 of the Camping Girl Cozy Mystery Series, written by Josephine Bintema, narrated by Josephine Bintema.
Chapter 14. White Oaks Resort and Golf Club. The White Oaks Resort was modern, large, and lit up the evening. It was obvious Al Frick wasn't worried about his electricity bill. Usually only open to members of the exclusive club, we were let in on Al's permission by a stiff but impeccably dressed man who doubled as keeping the riff-raff away. It was intimidating. Music graced the area from a small orchestra while people mingled in evening wear. It was obviously the social event of the area, with everyone looking to impress each other. A waiter with wine flutes offered us drinks. No, thank you. I gently turned down the offer. Wine had a habit of going straight to my head. It made my inhibitions flee and my mouth motor along like an auctioneer. I had spilled a lot of secrets while drinking just a couple of glasses. "Thank you," gushed Thelma as she took one. "You are such a gentleman." "Thanks." Bea swiped a glass from the tray. "We should mingle and see if we can find out anything new." "Is that George?" a distracted Thelma wondered. Putting on a bright smile, she threaded her way through the crowd in the direction of George Kershaw. "Good thing you brought me," an annoyed Bea shook her head. "Thelma's going to get all flirty instead of focusing on the task at hand." "She seems to really like him," I murmured, watching Thelma giggle and gently lay a hand on George's sleeve. George warmly smiled back, chatting with Thelma. George and Thelma were high school sweethearts, harumphed Bea. What happened? I wondered. They appeared to be sweet on each other. "George's mother," replied Bea. "She thought Thelma was a trailer tramp. The Kershaws were too high in the instep to allow their son to fall for a girl in a trailer park on the wrong side of town. Mr. Kershaw packed George up, sent him away to some smart college. He and Thelma never saw each other again. Just recently, George has moved back. He's a widower with 2 adult children and 4 grandkids." "Did Thelma ever marry?" I watched them gently flirt with one another. It was cute. 3 times, snorted Bea. 2 losers and 1 decent man. She's been through a lot. No kids. "You two have been friends for a long time," I guessed. "Long enough," shrugged Bea. "She's irritating, but she's a good woman. I hope George treats her right this time." "Me too," I agreed. "Ladies, so glad you could make it." Al Frick's warm voice preceded him. We turned to find him coming through the crowd, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. Al first bussed Bea on the cheek, then me. "Why don't I show you around?" "Please," I murmured. "This place is beautiful." "Thank you," beamed Al. "I designed it myself. It used to be an old trailer park where all sorts of undesirable people lived. Now it is for the elites of Oaks Crossing to gather. Too bad I can't expand the golf course to compete worldwide, but I'll have to satisfy my course is the best in the state. Again, Ivy, if you ever feel in need of a little business advice, I'm here for you. I've made my business a success and am more than willing to pass my expertise on to a friend." "Thank you." I wondered if his offer was genuine or just talk. "Wow, that is an enormous chandelier." "Imported from Italy," Al declared proudly. "I spared no expense." It was huge and dominated the space. Underneath, an ice sculpture stood amongst some planted ferns. Everything gleamed and gave the impression of wealth. "Here, you must try the wine." Al grabbed a glass from a waiter, passing it to me. "It's from our local grape winery. A special blend made only for the White Oaks Resort. I personally helped create it with the owners. We call it the Greens at White Oaks. Delightful, isn't it?" Out of politeness, I took a small sip. It was smooth and lovely. I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I don't believe I've ever tasted better than this. Al brightened under the compliment. "Only the best for my guests." I took another sip, enjoying the wine. "How long has the White Oaks been open?" 12 years since the grand opening." Al was happy to play the host and answer my questions. We walked along as he pointed out various handmade features. "It has been a labor of love. I was never made to be a banker as my father was. Tom is much better in that department. As soon as he was able to take on the family legacy, I started my dream." "Not many people get to follow their dreams," I remarked. "You're very lucky." "Luck has nothing to do with it," Al boasted. "I worked hard. It helped that I came from money, but I saved and invested. I grew the money I needed to start this adventure. I made certain I would be able to fund it without partners. Never go into business with partners, Ivy. It can tear friendships apart when a business is on the line." "I can understand that." I reflected on what I had heard Biff and Blake talking about and was glad I hadn't taken Blake up on his offer to help fund a bakery or help invest in the Happy Camper Resort. Sometimes you don't know your investors' motives especially well either. Exactly, Al nodded with enthusiasm. I can see you're a business person. You have what it takes to turn that little eyesore of a campground around. I winced a little. Thanks. There's a billiards room down the hall. The lounge is over here, Al continued with the tour, leading me along a wide corridor with plush carpet. A number of pictures were framed on the wall of high-standing members of the club. Al lingered at one. There is my father. He was the first man to try out the golf course after completion. He was enormously proud of all that I've accomplished. That's a nice memory, I murmured. I wondered how my mom would feel about my keeping the campground. I hadn't told her yet. I expect your mother will be happy, responded Al. Over here is the spa. We have some of the finest beauticians available for guests. I followed him, a little aghast that I had spoken aloud about my mother without meaning to. Looking at my empty glass in accusation, I set it down quickly in a potted plant. I never should have drunk that wine. Al was waiting for me, and I quickly moved to catch up with him. How many guest rooms are there? 100, Al informed me. We employ over 40 people on a regular basis, and nearly 100 on an occasional basis. I'm pleased to be one of the largest employers in the area. That's impressive, I complimented him. Looking around, I noticed Bea was gone, and I was alone with Al. A shiver ran down my spine as we walked through the main lobby. A nervous giggle rose up in me, clearing my throat. I tried to be more professional. It's a shame you can't expand the golf course. I'm sorry I can't sell you the Happy Camper Resort, but I've made a commitment. Al stopped, eyeing me. It is a shame. It limits what I am able to do here. I'm sorry, I blurted. For an awkward moment we stared at each other. Al collected himself. I need a woman's opinion. This area over here is open, a sort of empty space without much purpose. I was wondering if it would be advisable to put in a boutique, something which sells local crafts and some clothing, just in case people haven't brought their proper attire. Maybe even a little jewelry or cigars. What do you think? If I created mainly out of glass, it would showcase what was within the shop without infringing on the views of the lake beyond. That would be spectacular. I could almost envision what Al was talking about. Practical, yet if done correctly, a design showcase. I love it. Plus, I lose things all the time. I know I would appreciate a small gift shop with replacement items. Al nodded in satisfaction. I'm glad we agree. I can see you've got a mind for business. Again, if I can ever help for advice, don't hesitate to talk to me, Ivy. Feel me as a mentor, if you will. That's kind of you, I commented. It was kind. How could I have ever suspected Al of killing anyone? Al stopped and stared at me. What did you say? That's kind of you? I repeated, a little perplexed. No, the part about me not killing anyone, he clarified, watching me intently. I flushed guiltily. It was the wine talking. Nothing. It's nothing. Why don't we go out to the patio and look at the infinity pool? Suggested a slightly indignant Al. The fresh air might clear your head. I'm sorry, I murmured, following his lead. When I get a little tipsy, I say all sorts of things I shouldn't. I know better than to drink wine. It does this to me all the time. I become a chatty Cathy, and whatever stray thought crosses my mind comes right out of my mouth. I have no control out of it. Al put a hand to my back, propelling me along. Why don't you stick to water for the rest of the night? Or can I get you a coffee? Coffee sounds delightful. I breathed in the fresh air. I bet you have a deluxe blend. You have the best of everything. But you worked hard for it. Good for you. I'll get the coffee, promised Al. Just stay right here. I was alone on the patio. All sorts of luxury patio sets were spaced around the patio, and glowing torches that smelled of citronella to keep away the mosquitoes. Rubbing my arms against the chill, I wandered over to the pool, which was stunning. The water was so clear, it looked as though you could swim off the side into the forest. I wish my pool was this clean, I grumbled. Walking around the side, I noticed how the edge was made of a clear material, perhaps glass, giving the illusion of being able to swim out into space. How clever! 2 hands pushed me from behind, toward the edge of the pool where it hung out over thin air and the trees. My heel caught between the tile on the patio, twisting the shoe. A crack sounded as the heel broke off from my sandal and my direction was changed. Instead of falling down the side of the hill, I splashed into the pool. Sputtering, I surfaced. I still had a hold of my small clutch and hit my forehead with it as I tried to wipe my hair out of my face. "Ivy!" An alarmed Al set down 2 coffees on a patio table before rushing to the pool. "Are you okay?" "Yes." I swam to the edge of the pool and let him help me out. "Someone pushed me." Al frowned. "Now, Ivy, no one was here. I left you alone for only a minute." "Someone pushed me," I insisted as I shivered in the cool evening. I felt hands on my back. I almost fell over the infinity part of the pool into the ravine beyond. I was lucky. If my heel hadn't gotten caught between the patio stones, I could have died. "Stop being so melodramatic," chided Al as he rubbed my arms. "You're a little drunk. No one was here but you." "Someone was here." I pulled away from him, limping to where my heel was still caught in the stones. I yanked it out, hoping to salvage the pair of gold sandals. They had been expensive and looked amazing on me. And I only had 1 glass of wine. I'm not a drunk, just talkative. There's a difference. "Drink the coffee." Al held out a mug. "It will warm you up." Since I wasn't sure Al hadn't been the one to push me into the pool, I didn't trust his coffee. "I would like to go home. I'm going to find Thelma and Bee." "Not dripping water all over my floors and carpets." Al shoved the coffee into my hands. "I'll get Thelma and Bee for you. Wait here and stay away from the pool." Wrapping my cold hands around the mug for warmth, I reluctantly waited. I looked around for an errant throw blanket or towel, but it appeared everything had been put away for the night. Shivering and wet, I stayed, hoping Al would find Thelma and Bee soon. It only took a few short minutes before they were coming across the patio toward me. "Oh, Ivy!" cried Thelma as Al led her and Bee toward me. Thelma wrapped me up in a hug. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," my teeth chattered. "Just cold." "We'll take you home," clucked Bee, rubbing my arm. "This party was a little flat anyways." "Ladies, if you go this way, you can get straight to the valet parking." Al guided us around the side of the resort. "I apologize for what happened. I hope you'll come again sometime." Bee harumphed. "Thank you so much, Al," gushed Thelma as she wrapped an arm around me. Thelma handed her ticket stub to the waiting valet, and he left to fetch her car. "It sure is nice to have a big, young, strapping man like you looking after us itty-bitty ladies." Bee almost snorted out her dentures, and I admitted my jaw hung open before I snapped it shut. Al stood a little taller, flushing a little. "Aw, Thelma, I haven't been called young in ages. I'm getting a little older, too, with a few gray hairs." "What, with that thick head of blonde hair?" trilled Thelma. "I hardly noticed. Why, you still look so handsome. I'm surprised no one has asked you to model. I think you'd be amazing for men's formal wear or the cover of GQ." Bee covered her mouth and garbled something about Thelma laying it on a little thick. Al took Thelma's hand, laying a neat air kiss on the back. "Always a pleasure to see you, Thelma. You as well, Beatrice." Bee gave a stiff nod. "And Ivy?" Al took my free hand in both of his, giving it a light squeeze. "My offer of mentorship still stands. Sometimes, being as young as you are can be a bit difficult. I've got experience and am willing to guide you." Thank you?" I pressed the coffee mug into his hands. "Here." "Have a good night." Thelma ushered us into the waiting car. Once we started driving, Bee exploded. "What was that? I thought you were into George, not Mr. Married Al Frick." "Hush!" chided Thelma as she turned on the heater full blast. "Do you ever want to be invited back? I had to smooth things over so Al wouldn't ban us from the property." "He may have pushed me into the pool," I muttered, my cocktail dress sopping wet and dripping all over the leather upholstery. "He pushed you?" asked Thelma in alarm. "Why would Al do that?" wondered Bee. "I think I was meant to fall off the side," I explained. "There's a gap in the railing between the end of the infinity pool and the ravine. Someone pushed me from behind." "Oh, dear," gasped Thelma. Bee kept her cool. "Do you think it was Al?" "I don't know. I didn't see who did it," I sighed. "It could have been anyone who was at the party tonight." "But Al was right there," persisted Bee. "He went to get coffee," I told her. "I was pushed, and when I came up from the water, I saw Al standing with 2 cups in his hands." "Which means Al had opportunity," pointed out Bee. "He'd have to be awful quick to grab the coffee," frowned Thelma. "Perhaps someone else pushed you, then hid so Al wouldn't see them. Was there anywhere a person could hide?" "Lots of places," I admitted. The towel hut, the pool equipment building, behind the bar, or even behind any of the patio sets. With the lighting only from the torches, there were lots of shadows. It could be anyone. A disappointed Bee slumped in the passenger seat. We're no closer than when we first came. Yes, we are, retorted Thelma. Someone is afraid we're getting close to the truth. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tried to attack Ivy. Plus, I know where the rental shop is for all the golf clubs Frick keeps on the property. It holds most of the regular White Oaks members' clubs, so patrons don't have to lug their clubs back and forth from their homes to the golf course. Tonight, we're going to look at all those clubs and find out if anybody has a bloody club or somehow missing one of their set. Then we'll know who the killer is, a satisfied Bee smiled. What type of club did Conrad say it was again? An iron, I supplied, shivering. Conrad said the club was likely an iron that killed Ethel. Let's get you home and warmed up, fussed Thelma. We should each have a nap before we meet to go back to White Oaks. I thought we were going to do this while everyone was at the party, I questioned. That's why I wore black. With those heels? Hooted Bee. How are you going to sneak around in those? Or run if you had to? I shrugged, feeling a little defensive. The shoes went with the dress. Not very practical, pointed out Bee. The party is a bad time to try to search the rental shop, explained Thelma. There was too much chance of us getting caught. Later, when the White Oaks is closed for the night and the guests are in bed or staying inside the main building, is our chance. The security guard only comes from the rental shop twice a shift to check the locks are secure. As long as we lock the door after ourselves and be discreet, we should be searching until it opens. How are we going to get in? I wondered. The building is bound to be locked. Don't worry, winked Thelma. I have a key. Do you think we maybe should have Conrad and Herb help us? I asked. Privately, I thought I would feel a lot better if more of us were helping to find the club. There was safety in numbers. We could search through the clubs faster with more people. No, Bee shook her head. The more people you have, the more chance of something going wrong, so keep it to a minimum. I sighed in defeat and hoped we knew what we were doing.